What is going on, Pokemon TCG enjoyers? Ciaran here. I thought I'd do a rundown of my Toronto regionals with Lugia, since I feel like a lot of people have lost confidence in the deck, but hopefully I showed that it can still compete. I know Rahul also got top 16 at Perth the weekend before, and I haven't made a video in a while, so now with the holidays I have a lot more time. Hopefully I can start cranking out some more content. So in front of you can kind of see my matchups. I finished 9th. I lost an asymmetrical cut. But to start, I kind of just want to go over like my list going into the tournament, where I thought the meta was at, and why I felt comfortable sending Lugia. So this is the list I played. If you've been keeping up with me, I've been playing a list very similar to this. I've been playing minus Water Ogerpon plus third Mist, so I've been playing 17 energies. I've always just liked 17 energies. The way I play the deck is I'm a huge proponent of Wyrdeer. I think it makes so many checkmate boards, so I like having a lot of energy. But heading into the weekend, there's a couple matchups where I'm like, okay, like I think Wellspring actually can help a lot, right? So if I was taking a look, like it's on Limitless nicely, you can see the meta share for like a lot of tournaments from the stream. So if you look at like Stuttgart, for example, right? Like Miraidon is creeping up to 8%. That's obviously not a great matchup. You have decks like Golden Go getting more popular, which I think is a fine matchup. Right? You have decks like Gardevoir kind of sneaking up there. If we look at the Perth Regional Championship the weekend prior, Gardevoir got first place. There's one in top 8, or they got two in top 8, right? So it's been quietly going up in play. And the reason Waterpon is good is it's actually really good against Miraidon, which might seem counterintuitive. But what I normally like to do when I do tournaments is a strong tournament is I like to like go on Limitless and I go check here in the detailed card breakdown. It shows you the average counts in decks. Like only 40%, I think it was a little higher before Toronto, but only 40% of Miraidons were like playing switch card at all. So if you play against the Miraidon and they bench Squawk, they bench Latias, they bench Lumineon, they bench Pikachu EX, you can just bring it up and you can sob with Water Ogerpon and they can never retreat and you can deck them out. So that was super attractive to me. I guess if they bench bundle, don't use it, you can do that too. Squawk, I guess, doesn't work because eventually they do enough damage, but then we talk about Golden Go. Same thing. I looked up the card breakdown. Only 27% of them are playing Switch, and that coincides with how many people are playing Palkia. So I felt very confident if I played against a Golden Go and they weren't playing Palkia, I could make the assumption that they didn't play Switch. So against both of these decks, like I would just play normally. I would try and prize race them. If I'm up like 2 prizes, for example, I'll just play the game normally, no prize trade. But if I do fall behind and I don't feel like I can come back in the game, having the Sob option just felt really good. And then for Gardevoir, it's just like a lot of them don't play Manaphy, especially since like Henry's build was really popular, the like turbo build. So Water Punch is really good in that matchup because you can like knock out a Curlia, sometimes 2 depending on how strong your hand is. Then you save the Legacy and you can hands from there. And then like Water Pond has some like other niche applications against other decks. You can sob, do all that stuff. So yeah, that's why I decided to play the Water Pond. I cut the Mist Energy. I felt fine with 16. I'm never cutting any of these supporters. This is like the consistency of the deck. I'm a huge proponent of 2/2 Cinccino. I just think setting this up in so many matchups kind of just wins for you. So that was to me like the obvious cut to make. I also considered Fluttermane going to the tournament. I know the Dragapult Iron Thorns deck was getting a little bit more popular because it had been doing well. But I honestly just didn't think the deck was like that great. And I just felt like if I played against it, the odds of them starting Iron Thorns is only 53%. So like if they don't start Iron Thorns, I can just boss and like try and summon and start that way, which obviously is like still unfavored, but I still have a chance. I was thinking like most people who play normal Iron Thorns would probably just switch over to the Dragapult deck, which is like a bad matchup, but it's not unwinnable. And then Fluttermane, it does help a lot against Lost Box, but Lost Box has just been like underperforming so much. Regidrago's so popular, so I didn't expect a big meta share, and like you can honestly beat Lost Box without it. You can Wellspring works against them if they don't bench Manaphy. You have like other lines, like you have the hands, you can like Aqua Return. And one other thing I think I have going for me specifically is like most people, like if they get paired against me, they'd probably just look up my list on Limitless and see I haven't been playing Water Pond. They probably in game 1, like for example, like wouldn't bench Manaphy. Which I did play. I'll get into it. I played with Lost Box and I was able to use Wellspring pretty effectively there. So this is my list. Very happy with it. I would not change a card going forward. Probably play the same list, or I just cut Wellspring for like third Mist again, or maybe Flutter if the meta shifts. So I'm gonna go through my rounds. I kind of have some board states set up from interesting spots that I thought I got into, and we'll kind of discuss from there. So round 1, I hit Regidrago, which I'm very happy with. Most of them don't play Sinnoh anymore. Even if I play Sinnoh, I still feel favored. So, and this opponent did not play Sinnoh. So the first game was actually, I had such a scuffed setup and I felt like I was going to lose. And this was actually the very first time Waterpon helped out. Because I got to a situation where my opponent played an Iono and they only had 1 energy on the Strago because they guillotined the turn before and I hit it. So they had to manually attach and they were out of E-Switch. And I drew a hand kind of like this off of the Iono to 4. And it obviously didn't have boss. And then my opponent's deck was like 3 or 4 cards. So they actually, I think it was 4 cards exactly. So they couldn't Cleffa because they would have decked themselves out. So they had the Mew. They had Radzard left. That was their only thing left. And I think they were out of research, out of like everything. So what I actually ended up doing in this position, because I played like Nest Ball for like the Waterpon, and then I like put the double turbo and I researched, and like off of the research, kind of like I drew a hand like this where I drew the boss. And I kind of just like retreated and I sobbed the Cleffa because my opponent like played the switch on the previous turn and put up the Cleffa and their prime catcher was gone, their V-Star was gone. That bought me a turn, and then on the next turn I was able to boss the Drago, and then my opponent like whiffed Radzard energy to win. So yeah, Wellspring got like value for me like right away, which was kind of funny in like a matchup where I knew this is like a line sometimes, but like a matchup where Wellspring normally is kind of useless. So yeah, it was like a really cool play. And it ended up me winning. Game 2, I think I just like set up and I kind of just won from there. Round 2, I hit Alex Szymanski, which it's always kind of annoying when you hit a great player. Like he's an EUSC champion in like round 2 of a tournament. He was playing Drago with Sinnoh. Game 1, I just had like a super scuff setup. I couldn't set up. Game 2, I also had a scuff setup, but I was able to like come back in the game because I think he whiffed Gust. And then game 3, I had to like single chops. But I was able to like boss his Drago. Then eventually he was able to like Iono Temple me, like knock out my only chops. But like I literally drew boss energy. Like I hit the nuts. Even if I didn't draw boss energy, I probably would have won in the long run because his Sinnoh and V-Star were gone. But if I would have done Tempest Dive. But yeah, it felt good to win that one against a great player. This is bugged on the site. I only played Charizard once. This is just round 3. Honestly, Charizard's a matchup where if you set up, you should win. Also, my opponent won the flip and chose to go first. And when I won game 1, they also chose to go first in game 2, where I actually like going second against Charizard. So I was really happy that my opponent let me go second both times. It just helps me set up more. And then if you set up with Lugia and you can kind of get the turn 2 hands with the Cinccino on the bench or double Minccino, then you're in a really good spot. When you go second, you have to read the wind and play a supporter. And then Charizard turn 2, like if they just rare candy Charizard and punch, like it doesn't advance their board state. They normally need like rare candy Charizard Dusclops on your only Lugia, which I'm like, that's really hard for Charizard to get. They normally need to prioritize getting the Pidgeot. When you make them go first, they kind of need to like pop them for like the Pidgey and the Charmander, or like Nest Ball if they Rotom. They don't have time to get Duskull. So I in general favor going second. Round 4, I was on stream against Regigigas Pikachu EX. This is probably like the worst matchup I could have faced all day. Luckily in the first game, my opponent didn't draw very well. And he kind of scooped really early. I took like a 2-prize lead on him, and then he kind of just scooped. Where I feel like he could have just played the game out, because my deck has no way to knock out Pikachu. And the second game, it was like, he attacked with Pikachu, and then like I did an Aqua Return play, and he had a Squawk on his bench. And like I think a lot of people are like, oh, why didn't you just replace the Stadium or Tempest Dive? It's like, my idea was to like hands the Squawk eventually, knock out Pikachu with like a 1-prizer, and go from there. But he played Penny on his Pikachu with damage, and then like got rid of the Squawk. And the game actually ended up getting close, because I kept playing like Iono and like sticking him, and then I think I kind of played poorly because I was like bossing his Gigas instead of his Drago to like deny draw, because I think I was just overthinking it. I was thinking he might play like the quote-unquote bad Drago, the one that does like 240 to like knock out other Vs or like EXs. So I thought I would kill Drago or Gigas because he's like might play the third one, so if I knock out Drago, he can just bench that Drago. But yeah, I should have just been knocking out his Dragos. So my opponent played pretty slowly, so like the game 2 took like, I don't know, like almost 40 minutes, so game 3 there wasn't much time, so luckily I escaped that one with a tie. Round 5, I faced Guardy. First game, I got kind of like a weird setup, and then like my opponent was able to take 2 prizes before me, so I kind of just like lost. The second game, I think I got off like a really good Waterpon, and then like he didn't set up that well. And like the third game, like I got to hands twice before my opponent took a prize. So I was up 2-6. So from there, like pretty much impossible. I had Cinccino and hands, so he had to trigger a gift at some point. Whenever a gift gets triggered, it's like super easy just to draw boss for game, which is what happened. Round 6, I faced a mirror. I went first game 1. I got my only natural like Ultra Ball double chops of the whole tournament. which it's like a 3 or 4. I think it's like 4 or 5% that happens. So it makes sense that it only happened like once. So yeah, just game 1 was perfect, and then game 2, it was interesting. So like my opponent went first, got turn 2 knockout with hands. Then I did hands on his Archeops, and then my opponent didn't put a gift on his hands. Instead, he decided to power up an Ursaluna, and he didn't knock out my hands. He like bossed like my Squawk or something, or Lumineon, and like went down to 1. So I was able to Iono him to 1. I was able to Bloodmoon his hands. So now I'm at 3, and he had a Lumineon on his bench. So I think if he would have just like put a gift on his hands, or he would have like what's it called? Knocked out my hands with Bloodmoon, since I was actually down both of my Minccinos, I actually think he would have won. But luckily I owned him to 1, he didn't draw boss, and then on my turn I just had like Lumineon or something, I bossed his Lumineon game. Round 7, this was probably like my like most fortunate round of the tournament. Game 1 was like really close. It came down to like I owned my opponent, he had to hit like a 4-card combo, and he got it, which isn't that outrageous because they're lost box. And then we got deck checked after game 1. And you know, like I was sitting there, like waiting. Eventually, like 10 minutes passed. Like once it gets that long, you know something is wrong. So eventually, like 21 minutes after they deck check us, they come back, and one of my opponent's cards they said was like marked, like they could pull the Prime Catcher out every single time. They said it was because of the sleeves my opponent was using. So they determined like it wasn't malicious. I don't think it was malicious either. I just think it's like A-specs naturally warp, and I guess the sleeves or whatever like made it weird. I don't know. So they said he had to like re-sleeve, and they just gave him a game loss. But the crazy thing I didn't know is they said this year at tournaments, since they want to keep the tournament moving along, the longest time extension you can get is 16 minutes. So by the time my opponent like re-sleeved his deck and we started playing like game 3, like 30 minutes, like the whole thing took like 30 minutes, and we only got like a 16-minute extension. So that definitely like left a sour taste in my mouth. I feel like for competitive integrity of the tournament, like that should not be a rule. I feel like they should just be more efficient on like deck checking or like making a ruling decision. Because I saw the judges like convening like for a long time, like they just, I don't know, didn't make sense to me. And I felt really bad because I could tell my opponent was super frazzled in the 3rd game, like he was super thrown off. I think he made some mistakes because of that, and I kind of just won just because he had a turn or 2 he missed attacking. I think he like messed up one of his gates, so it definitely felt really bad to win that round, like the way I won. Obviously I'm happy I won, but I definitely think I mainly won that round just because of like outside intervention that had nothing to do with this like play of the table. Round 8 I hit Stefan, and I had no idea what Stefan was playing, and then he went first game 1, and he's like, he poffined for like Froakie and Duskull. I'm like, oh, he's still playing the Palkia deck, which I'm happy about. Palkia is one of Lugia's like best matchups. The first game he didn't even like draw that well, but like I don't think it mattered that much. So I just like kind of like steamrolled him, and then the second game I'm kind of bored here. I got like a hands on his Squawk to take 3 prizes on turn 2. And then he like Iono'd me, and like he like knocked out my hands, and I drew a hand like this, which was really good because like what I could do was I was able to go like Wyrdeer and Jet, and then I could get like double gift Mist. Like Jet, you need 8 energies with 2 double turbos to knock out V-stars. I had a boss. I could boss the Palkia, and the reason this was so strong is it put me down to 1, and then like he can't use Duskull anymore because I just win. And then it's like he's kind of forced to kill his Wyrdeer or else it sweeps him, and the Wyrdeer had a gift. So he could Iono me, and then I just draw a bunch of cards off gift, or he could just let me keep my hand, which had an Ultra Ball in it for fish. So that's my first Wyrdeer kind of like checkmate of the day, and I'll show you more as we go on. But yeah, that felt like a good round. It was good to a good matchup. Round 9, I hit Nick Moffat, so another pretty decent player. He did play Temple in his Drago. Game 1, I feel like I went first. I got turn 2, 2 prizes. I think I hands his Cleffa or something. Just kind of like an easy, smooth sailing. Game 2, I feel like he got super greedy and he went for like a Motivate turn 2. And then I was able to knock it out. And then he like Drago'd and like knocked out a Lumineon or something and played a Temple down. And then like I had a hand like this. I was able to like Mesagoza, and he already used his V-Star. And I grabbed like my Wyrdeer, and it's like the same thing as the game before. I just made like a massive Wyrdeer. I think I can do this, something like this, and then I went like Primal Turbo, I think this or something. And then the nice thing was I had a Cinccino on my bench, so this was why the game was like truly over. Was I knocked out the Drago with the Wyrdeer. And one way that like their deck can respond is they can knock you out with Ogerpon. This obviously doesn't work because I have a Cinccino, and the Wyrdeer has to be responded to. Otherwise, Cinccino, or otherwise, like this goes again. And then they can't use a 2-prizer because that Cinccino already knocked them out. So he had the Radzard, but I had a gift. And it was the same thing. I had like a boss or something in my hand, but if he Iono'd me and like gift triggered, like it's almost impossible to whiff. Like an Ultra Ball, a fish, a boss, flipping tails on Aroma or heads on Mesagoza. So I was able to win that one fairly easily, to be honest, which felt good. So I went 8-0-1 to end day one. I was second seed heading into the day. Yeah, I was pretty happy. Like I hit overall pretty good matchups. I'd say the Regigigas, Guardy, and Lost Box are probably slightly unfavored, but I was able to go 2-0-1 against those. And everything I was supposed to beat, I beat pretty handedly, which felt good. So, hey, I just want to say thanks for watching my video. If you want to support me, one of the best ways you can do it is join my Metafy group, Ciaran's Trainers Guild. I post weekly kind of like puzzles or board states I go over, and I also have an option where you can join my weekly group class where I do stuff like going over VODs, we work on sequencing, deck building, meta-analysis, and all of that. I also have, if you want to learn more about Lugia, I have my Ultimate Lugia VSTAR guide that you can check out. It's about almost 4 hours of content. You can get a discount if you join my Metafy group, or you can just buy it for purchase. But yeah, check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, just enjoy the rest of the video. Going to day 2, I knew the top tables. There was 2 Drago and there was 1 Raging Bolt. So I felt fine hitting pretty much either of them. I ended up hitting Grant Shen round 1 of day 2. Grant's a good friend of mine. I knew he wasn't playing Sinnoh, so I was very happy. So like game 1, it was just like I set up. I even got boss on his Drago turn 2. Like perfect setup. That was a steamroll. Game 2 was really awkward because I started Lumineon. I had to bench Squawk. But he whiffed turn 2 Regidrago. He even V-starred for E-Switch and whiffed. So from there, like the game was kind of just over. It wasn't actually just over. It was actually still really close. I couldn't take a 2-prize knockout on my second turn. Then went from there. He started like attacking, but it came down to the late game where it's like I took out his last Regidrago and I was able to legacy like my Archeops, and he just wasn't able to knock it out. And from there, like I just won. Then round 12, I hit Raging Bolt, which I hate playing as Raging Bolt because the matchup is literally just do you set up or not. So my opponent won the flip and chose to go first. That kind of told me that like he's probably not super experienced playing the Lugia matchup because you don't want to let Lugia. You want Lugia to go first because it's harder for me to set up. Because as Lugia, I can't attack when I go. I can't take a knockout when I go second. So I'd rather go second myself to read the win, set up, and make sure like I have a really good setup against Raging Bolt. Because if I set up, I'm gonna outprice trade them. So game 1, it kind of came down to like this kind of board where it's like I had a Lugia with the Legacy where my opponent was at 2, and I had a Cinccino. And I had 2 options. I could have Cinccino'd and bossed this, or I could have like Tempest Dives the Fez. And I ended up going like boss and knockout Fez because I was scared if I like Cinccino'd and my opponent had another Bravery Charm, I wouldn't be able to knock out Fez. I had Wyrdeer left, so I don't think I shouldn't have been that scared. And I went with that play, and then my opponent went like Catcher Heads, and then my opponent went like Briar and knock out my Cinccino for game. And I really should have thought about that harder. I just assumed my opponent wasn't playing Briar because I haven't seen it in like Raging Bolt in a super long time. Like I saw my opponent play Iono, so I'm like, oh, if they're playing Iono, they're probably not playing Briar because normally you only play like 1 tech supporter. But yeah, I lost to that, which really sucked. So I definitely probably should have gone like for this and then just like done Wyrdeer if I really had to win. So that was annoying. Game 2, I just set up and I won. And then game 3, I prized Legacy and I prized Jacq. There was a turn 2 where all I needed was I had Lumineon. I just needed like Lumineon for Jacq and then Ultra Ball Chops, and I was going to win because my opponent whiffed turn 1 attack. And I prized Jacq, so it was so sad. And then I prized Legacy, and I just needed Legacy to like put my opponent off the 2/2/2 map. But unfortunate, but I mean, it happened sometime. So I knew I needed to win my next round to like have a chance, and I faced Drago again. So this was my 1, 2, 3, 5th Drago of the tournament. This one did play Sinnoh. And then game 1, like I kind of just sat because like I had the bench like Lumineon and Squawk, and my opponent was able to like temple Iono me to 1, and like they were gonna win next turn no matter what. And I literally just drew boss off of the Iono to 1, which is obviously all luck, no skill. Game 2 though, I do think I won. I think my opponent, they thought too hard, and they kind of made a slight misplay that I was able to punish. So turn 2, the board was like this. So I went second, and I read the wind with a double turbo on my Lugia. And there's a very specific reason I put double turbo on my Lugia instead of a different energy, was because I wanted to Wyrdeer his Regidrago if he like went for like knockout on this one or something. because he started with Ogerpon, so I'm like, oh, maybe he plays Prime Catcher or something. But what my opponent ended up doing is they ended up like bundling this Lugia, and then they ended up doing Giratina. And he already used his V-Star power. And then he had no energy left in play, with like 2 E-Switch in the discard. So yes, my opponent took 2 prizes, but he left himself open to now Wyrdeer knocking this out, and I kind of just win. So he was worried that I was going to go, like, if he knocked down with double turbo, I would just evolve and boss one of his 2 prizers, which I think I would be in a winning position if this happened. And my hand was only like 4 cards, and I did actually have it, but I don't think that was like the right thing to play around. Yeah, I think I like top decked a Minccino. I got a Lugia. I summoning starred. I think I like preemptively put the energy into play, so I think I went like, I think I did them like this. And I went like double turbo and like gift or something. Yeah, and then I nest balled for like my Wyrdeer. And I was like, all right, research. If I hit the jet, I think I'm going to win. If I don't hit jet, then I think I'm in a bad spot. And actually, yeah, I drew a hand kind of like this one. I just went like jet the Wyrdeer. And then from here, like it was just pretty much like game over. Because my opponent, like it's kind of similar to that game against Moffat. It's like if they knock out the Wyrdeer, then I have Minccino ready. I'm just going to evolve this to Cinccino, knock out the Regidrago. If they attack me with Ogerpon, which is like the easiest thing to knock out Wyrdeer here, because they can't really Radzard because they're at 4. They'd have to get like double E-Switch or whatever. They knock me out with Ogerpon. I just actually bring up Lugia and like Tempest Dive for knockout, and then like then again save Cinccino. So this kind of just like won me the game, which was super nice. So now at this point I'm like 10-1-1. So I think I could ID into ASIM, or I could play out the last round and like try and like dodge ASIM. So I hit Caleb Gettable in the last round, who's playing Drago without Temple, which is a good matchup. So I was considering playing. But if I look at the standings going into the last round, I don't know if they have it, if I can go round by round. I think they do. If I went into round, what round would that have been? 13? As it loads, but I had the highest resistance by a decent amount. And Henry Chow got down paired. He was on 29 points to a 28-point player, Stefan, who was playing Palkia. So he was playing Palkia, so I was like, okay, against Gardevoir. So I'm like, that's a pretty good, actually, that's around 12. Pretty good matchup for Palkia. So I was like, okay, there's a pretty good chance that Henry's going to lose. So then one 32-point player will make top cut with a playing ASIM. And then I was like, if any of the 30-pointers or the 29-pointer games tie, like naturally, then that introduces more 32 people who can just make cut straight up. So I decided to ID because I'm like, my resistance was so high, like as you'll see, that I'm like, okay, I can probably just dodge it. Worst case, I play ASIM, and like there's just a bunch of Dragos for me to hit. There was like Pidgeot control for me to hit. Lots of good stuff. So yeah, I had like a 2% resistance lead on all the other 31 pointers going to this round. And if I went down to the 29s, like I was way above all these people as well. So I decided to ID. Henry, I mean, somehow beat Stefan, and there's no natural tie, so I had to play ASIM, which wasn't a big deal because I hit Regidrago with no Sinnoh. And if I looked at the bracket after, what's it called? After like standings, like the bracket was looking so good for me. My ASIM game here was me against Owen Rhodes, who was playing Drago no Sinnoh. If I won, I would have played Caitlin White playing Drago no Sinnoh. If I won that match, I would have played against Gedimer playing Drago no Sinnoh. If I won that, I would have played against Cal playing Drago with Sinnoh. So it really felt like the tournament, like everything was lining up for me, that like my bracket was perfect. Like I just had to set up with Lugia, and like I was just gonna probably like win this tournament. And then I probably had the most like heartbreaking like match I've ever played in my life in ASIM. I literally did not get Lugia V down until turn 3 both games. And in game 1, I still almost won because my opponent got a DPL, and I had like 6 cards. I got Iono to 6. I drew for my turn. I literally just needed to get a Cinccino, and I had Mesagoza and Aroma, and I just had to flip heads on either of them. And I get Cinccino, I knock out his Regidrago. I had V-Guard or Legacy on my Lugia on the bench, so he couldn't take 2 prizes, and I had Lumineon for boss in the following turn. And I flipped double tails, so I lost that game. In game 2, I literally just did not even take a prize. Like I just could not set up. So I was like so crushed. Like I've lost a lot of high stakes matches in my career playing Pokemon. But I think this one hurt the most because it really felt like everything was lining up for me to like win my first major in Masters, and it was like my home city. So yeah, I was really crushed. I had to like go compose myself, but luckily like my dad was there, like to give me like emotional support after, and like I think I just kind of like sat like for like half an hour by myself, just like sad. And really that it was over, and that it just felt like so cruel the way I lost and like how much hope I had. But you know, I gathered myself. One of my juniors I worked with was in the final, so I went over and watched him. And you know, I think reflecting, it was still a great tournament run. It was just like it'll sting for a long time, probably until I win one. Because this one truly felt like the one. So yeah, I was like overall really happy with Lugia. I think I could have played a little better in a couple of my matches, but I feel like I played pretty well the whole weekend. And yeah, I think Lugia is still a great deck. I have lots of people always ask me about it. Really, like Miraidon and Lost Box Pikachu like haven't been that popular. And if those aren't that popular, like Lugia's in a great spot. We're in a meta where Regidrago is the best deck, and a majority of them aren't playing Sinnoh. So having a really good matchup into the best deck, like as you can see, before Top Cut, I went like 5-0, and I went 10-1 in individual games against Drago. So having that strong of a matchup against the most popular and best deck is really, really good. So yeah, if you're a Lugia enjoyer, I would say definitely keep playing it. Or if you're on the fence about it, I'd say play it. One thing is you are kind of at the mercy of matchups sometimes. Like LAIC, for example, I hit 2 Thorns, had a bad tournament. That kind of just happens. So you have to be okay with losing, having some auto losses in the field, but no matter what deck you pick, there's always going to be stuff you don't want to sit across from. But yeah, the power level deck's high, so I'll probably continue to play it. I really want to win a tournament with Lugia before it rotates, so I think I have 2 or 3 more shots at it. And that Regigigas coming out in the next set is definitely going to help the deck a lot. Give it like an even better matchup into stuff like Charizard. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed my report. I know I rambled for a lot. Let me know what you thought about like the board states or like this style of report, and let me know what type of content you want to see over the holiday break. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed. Yeah, leave any comments what you think. So thanks for watching.